Las Vegas, famous, fabulous playground of the West. A wide-open town that never goes to sleep.
I don't care if the sun don't shine. I do my drinking in the evening time when I'm in Las Vegas.
Get ready for 1 full hour of vintage Vegas. This is Vegas Knights Tales, the radio show. These 3 dealers have spent their time in the gaming pits, and now they're talking. Growing up in 1950s Vegas, breaking into the mob-run casinos in the 1970s, they'll tell what it was really like in the golden era. The art of dice and cards, mobsters and muscles, starlets and harlots. The real story from guys who lived it. Now, let's bring on the hosts. Here's Benny Baccarat, Danny Craps, and Jimmy Bags.
Hey out there, Las Vegas, how you doing? Hey, listen, it's Danny Craps here, but minus Jimmy Bags and Benny Baccarat. They left me a note, and all it says is, we'll be back next week. But you know what? I miss them, but hey, I got 2 able-bodied storytellers here. I got D.H. right next door, and I got Brad the Pit. And look at that shirt he's wearing. For all you people who have been here more than 24 hours, the Alpine Village Inn was one of the hottest places to eat, and he's going to tell you all about it. These guys are going to tell you stories that'll knock your aprons right off of your pants. Anyway, take it away, guys.
Hey, Danny, how are you, man?
Oh, man, I'm doing real good. I was having an erotic dream this morning, and my mom came and hit me on the head and said, "Wake up, you were supposed to go to work." I go, "Mom, I did go." "Bullshit!" And I had to show her my clothes and everything, that I actually went into work, and I left. I was trying to break the speed record, and that's it.
Hey, Mom, I was at work tonight. Didn't see Danny.
I was at work, too, and I didn't have a wet dream.
For the first time.
Right. Especially one,
They didn't tell me you were going to be here.
You didn't know? It was
no, I wouldn't have come.
It was on Twitter and hashtag.
I would not have been here if I knew he was.
What, Brad the Pit?
Yeah, no,
that's Brad the Pit, man. I mean, he's got some stories. So
Brad's a day oneer, man. He was here. You've been here forever. You were
45 years. Born here in Las Vegas.
What hospital was that?
That was Sunrise Hospital.
Well, you got here in '69.
Born here in '69.
Oh, that's a great year to be born.
I wasn't born here, but I was here even before that. '66. I got here when I was 11 from San Diego.
Are you saying you're more mature than Brad the Pit?
That's right. I'm slightly older.
Yeah, just slightly.
I know you can't tell.
I lived a little cleaner, I suppose. Yeah.
You had a clean life growing up in Las Vegas?
No.
What a waste of a life, man. Who?
Let's see who ended up in juvenile hall. I was there 3 times in my youth.
Zenoff Hall.
Zenoff. You know the one.
Yeah, I know that one.
Hey, I would have been there, but I had some juice, man.
You did.
My old man was the deputy chief, so he got me out of some.
Gene Clark.
And then he warned me to, don't do that again.
Gene Clark.
Clark. Yeah.
One of the heavy hitters of the old Metro Guard back in the day.
Yeah, he was Ralph Lamb's right-hand man.
There was no such thing as police brutality back then, was there?
No. I knew a couple of guys, one named Lake Headley, who was a private investigator. He was with the police department before they merged with the sheriff's department around 1970.
Yes.
He was... my mom got divorced. Then she started dating a cop, which was Lake. And Lake quit the police department because he said it was more like a vigilante committee than a law enforcement agency. So he got out, became a private investigator, and a good one. Pretty well known and written 4 or 5 books. So they weren't known for being really kind and fair and treating everybody correctly. They believed, as Gene used to tell me, that the end justified the means.
I've heard that many times with my back against the wall.
And that's why I tried to get him to give me some stories, and so we could write a book about him and the department. He said after he retired, he became a born-again Christian, and he really didn't want to talk about it. I tried to get my mom to get some stories. She got a few stories out of him, but He really didn't want to discuss it.
It's a shame. It's a shame. You got any, Brad, did you have an exciting upbringing here?
I suppose so. I mean, people think that growing up here in Las Vegas is a world different than any place else, but in a lot of ways it's not. I remember going to grade school on Halloween dressed as a dealer. I don't think anyone else did that in the country. But,
Oh, my God.
I had my little apron, my little horseshoe polo tie that they wore there forever, But I played Little League Baseball and Pop Warner football, raced BMX bikes. I mean, we were just kids growing up. I mean, I probably learned how to shoot craps before I learned how to swim, so that might be a little bit different. And we used to play bathroom craps and bathroom blackjack back at Red Rock Elementary, back in the 70s.
Red Rock Elementary, that's on Upland, isn't it?
Yeah, that's on Upland and Charleston over there.
And also Alta, Upland and Alta.
Right.
The church is still there. It's been there for since the 60s.
Right, yeah,
along
the
with
church
the
is still
school.
there. I lived in that neighborhood down at the bottom of Falcon Street, which was, we had a lot of fun because it was a big hill, and we used to
Yeah.
ride our bikes and skateboards down there and build forts in the desert. That was called the Gray Hole back there behind Fletcher Jones, which is a bunch of apartments now. And, those were good times.
Craps could be a valuable tool because when I went in the Navy and I find myself on a ship in the South China Sea gambling with Marines, and I was a sailor, it was like house advantage for the Vegas kid because I knew the rules
Wow.
to craps. I knew that if you bet against a shooter every time, you're going to win money. They didn't know you're supposed to borrow 12 or anything like that. They're just, how come you keep winning? I'm just lucky, man.
That's unbelievable. So,
Yeah, and you learn how to count cards here as a kid, and you play blackjack with these guys. How come you don't want to be the dealer? Too much of a hassle. You guys deal. I'll just play.
You see, bathroom blackjack, you want to be the dealer because bathroom blackjack was double exposure blackjack. And it's a real house game. I think they feature it over at the Stratosphere now, but blackjacks get even money and ties lose.
The Stratus Flea.
And so I would always deal bathroom blackjack. We'd play for nickels, And
What happened? How do you have the advantage here?
You have the advantage because ties lose.
That's a big advantage. Yeah.
So if you get dealt to 20 and the dealer's got 20, you got to hit or split and try to make something happen.
Yeah.
Or you're going to lose. That's why I always dealt. That's why I never studied, which is why I've been in the casino business for 25 years now, probably because I didn't do enough schoolwork. You know what I mean? But it's just good times, man. I love growing up in Las Vegas.
it was a
I
beautiful
do too.
thing.
I wouldn't trade it. I would not trade it for anything.
No.
Growing up, being a kid and being 12, 13 years old, and my friend Sandy and I, we would ride our bikes because the town wasn't that big then. We lived right behind where Ellis Island is now.
Wow.
The apartments cost $80 a month.
Whoa.
We'd ride our bikes up to the dunes or Caesar's Palace. They'd let us come in there and use the pools, and we'd dive off the high dives. They had every big resort had high dives and regular diving boards in, and we'd spend our days at the pool. We'd never cause any trouble. They left us alone. Awesome place. If we wanted to go a little farther, we'd walk up to the train tracks on Spring Mountain, jump on a freight train, ride it down to the Hacienda,
Wow.
jump off the train before it got going too fast, and go ride the go-karts for $1.
Wow.
And then hop back on a freight train, go home. Good times, man.
Wow. Wow. That's you know what, it was fun. I know for me it was. I take the bus when I was 13 downtown. We lived over off by Municipal Golf Course off of Vegas Drive. And people are familiar with it now, Vegas and Valley, because that's where Siegfried and Roy put their first menagerie of animals and everything.
Yeah, you could hear them lions roaring
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah, I used to live in that neighborhood,
Right.
Stonehaven neighborhood over there. Yeah.
Yeah, Stonehaven. That was But before it was Stonehaven, when my dad built a house over there off of Catalpa, which was off Melody Lane. Melody Lane was off Valley. It was the end of 1959, and there wasn't too much around. But before Stonehaven, it used to be a racetrack. It was a track that had a ranch, and the track was big. And I would go and run around. this girl that I wanted to impress, she came over there with her horse, and I told her I could outrun her and the horse. And I don't know. Somebody must have gave me something because I really believed it. So she gave me a head start, and the next thing you know, the horse was gone in a cloud of dust, and she was gone.
That's another thing. Remember how many horses used to be around town?
Everybody would ride their horses all over the place.
If we'd go down to Daydream Ranch on Sunset, Pecos, we'd rent those horses for an hour or two a week, and then they got to know us. And then they'd rent us those horses for $10 a day.
Yeah.
And we would ride them all over town. We'd get a mile away from the stables, take off the saddles, go bareback, just ride them wherever we wanted. Awesome stuff for $10.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
did you hit Daydream, Brad, at all?
No, I don't remember Daydream Ranch. I remember going to
Rockin' Horse Ranch.
Rockin' Horse, yeah.
horseback riding up at Mount Charleston. We used to go up there to do that, you know.
Yeah, this was in the 60s and 70s. It may have been gone by...
Yeah, in the 60s, I was in Baghdad.
You were in Baghdad, huh?
Yeah, or I mean, Dad's bag.
Yeah.
Dad's bag, not Baghdad, huh? I love it. I love it. You know, telling these stories about old Vegas, especially the people out there that did grow up here, and you know, it's nice to reminisce about. I mean, I got memories of going to the Q Club over there in that shopping center
Commercial
mall.
Center, yeah.
Commercial Center. The
Still
ice.
there?
Yeah, it's still there, and the old Ice Palace where you'd go ice skating during the week, and then on weekends they had concerts.
Ice Palace was the hangout.
Oh.
That was the spot. If you wanted to impress a girl, you took her there. If you wanted to see a concert, the first time I ever heard of Alice Cooper was when I saw him at a concert there. And I couldn't believe it. I said, this guy is unbelievable. What was that, 69 or something?
Oh,
70?
at least.
No, before that. 67? I don't even remember.
I remember I went there one night to see Blue Cheer.
I saw them there.
I was
Blue
there that
Cheer?
night.
No
I was
shit.
wearing a blue Nehru shirt. Remember the Nehru shirts?
Yeah.
You know, looked like you were from India, but you weren't. And
Blue Cheer.
yeah.
I don't even know what the hell Blue Cheer is, man.
Well, it was a detergent, but then before then it was a rock
Cheer
group.
did.
Summertime.
They were but there ain't no
Cure
cure
for the summertime blues.
They
Yeah.
did it before 5 other people did.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, Blue Cheer.
Right.
And then it became a detergent. And got your clothes squeaky clean.
And the last concert the Doors ever did?
At the convention center.
No.
I mean, no. The
The Ice Palace.
The Ice Palace.
That
That's
was
right.
it.
The Ice Palace.
That was it. We were there to see that, and we were hoping for a big show. No big show because it was surrounded by 40 Metro officers because that was right after Morrison had gotten arrested in Miami for
Being obscene.
exposing himself, which apparently never happened. But
Well, that's because of the controversy of the one song where he said, "Mother, I wanna you,"
yeah,
and you know, right then people were pissed off. So naturally,
no sense of humor. Man.
I can't understand it. I mean, we were dropping acid. I mean, when I saw the Blue Cheer, I ran into this girl from San Francisco. Her name was, she said, "I'm Cherry." I said, "Yes, you are." And she said, "Take this, you'll love it." It was some Orange Sunshine. All I know is I was just like dazzled, and I didn't know what, I wanted to get laid, and then after that, I was just thinking about Fields of Ambrosia. That was it.
That'll change your life. The LSD.
It did.
I took LSD
Yeah.
at a Black Sabbath concert. That was a mistake. Yeah.
Oh, my
yeah.
God.
Yeah, I've never been so terrified in my life.
That's so dark. Black Sabbath is dark.
And that was at the old Aladdin. And in the middle of the show, I freaked out. This little kid in a Red Devil costume came running out, and I knew he was coming for me.
Oh.
And I ran out of the Aladdin and lived up on, like Spring Mountain and Rainbow at the time. I ended up walking home. I ran probably about halfway there before I realized there was nothing really chasing me.
Wow.
And my buddies just...
Wow. Well, let's hold that thought and see if the devil really was chasing Brad the Pit. We'll be right back after these commercial messages where we're going to talk about how DH here accidentally took 12 Viagra, more than Lamar Odom. We'll get back to you on that.
I cannot help it. I'm Now, let's return to the Vegas Knights.
Hey, everybody out there. I hope you're enjoying the show with Brad the Pit, DH, and Danny Craps. These guys have some stories, and we got one for you right now. Brad the Pit, when you broke in, you got any horror stories or any happy ending stories you want to tell the audience out there?
Well, I broke in at the Gold Coast in 1991, a month after my 21st birthday. Wow. Actually, before that, I broke in at the Golden Gate. I only worked there for one day, and they placed me there at a dealer school. And so I dealt dice at the Golden Gate for one day, and then my uncle, who was in the business in the heyday in the 50s and 60s at the Desert Inn, and he kind of juiced me into the Gold Coast. But I had to go deal blackjack for a while. So, but they were making about
Sorry about that.
they were making about $75-$80 a day at the Gold Coast. And then I called the Golden Gate a couple days later and said, "Hey, I worked there on Friday. I only worked one day. What did Tokes go for?" They said $11, and I never went and got it. I was like, "Oh shit, just put it back in the box, man. 'Cause I'm doing better than that now." And a guy named Alan Scano was the casino manager there. He was a real piece of work. And after doing some begging, I finally got some dice time. He let me go over there and deal dice because that's what I really wanted to do. And it was on a dollar game. And he was standing behind me, and the guy had a $1 field bet, and I didn't reach out and size into it with my outside hand. I just kind of tossed the dollar out there. He kicked me in the back of the leg and said, "Size into that, you little cunt." I was like, "Oh, okay." And then the very next roll, I went out there just like he said and sized into it, because that's what you did. I mean, there was no HR back then in those days. You just did what you were told and taught me how to deal the game right. I mean, there's that side of it also. And I was on the stick one time, and guy's got the dice, and he bends over to shoot, and his little cocaine vial fell out of his breast pocket, and it landed in the field, and I tapped it with the stick because he didn't see it. I said, "Sir, without a scale, I can't book that."
Without a scale.
And he picked it back up, put it in his pocket, and he's like this, and he's looking all around, and I hit the stick in front of him. I said, "Hey, get a roll, man. Nobody cares. Let's go." And then, so he got a roll, and then that got me actually banished from the dice pit. I got written up for that, for improper stick calls.
Wow.
That's how they did things there. So I was back in Squaw Valley, is what we called the 21 pit. So I was back in Squaw Valley for the rest of my year that I broke in there at the Gold Coast. But it was a good experience because I never got treated that bad any place else I worked, and I've worked some other places, local places, and I worked at the Horseshoe, and the Horseshoe, that was the fun job. We used to get our breaks at the Horseshoe, run over to the Nugget, do a quick shot, and then run into the alley and burn one, and then we're back on our game. And I got more dice time over there, and they had the 100 times odds over there back then, and so that's when I really learned the craft of dealing dice that my uncle used to tell me about. My uncle was he's still alive. He's in his 90s now.
Wow.
He's in bed most of the time, but he would tell me stories about what it was like to work for the families. As a non-Italian, you can only climb so far up the ladder. And he was the dice shift manager over at the Desert Inn, and he said he made so much money, and he just give them what they want. He said there was basically 3 rules to working for the families back then, which was don't lie to them, don't steal from them, and don't screw their wives or girlfriends. And if you can follow those 3 rules, you can make a lot of money in this town. And he did. He did. And I asked him, where's all your money? He said, "Oh, it went up my nose." And he just partied. And a lot of these guys, they bought real estate and stuff like that. He just partied and had a good time. He said he got no regrets. That he
God bless him. He lived the life.
Yeah, he did.
He lived the life.
He bought his house over on Oakey and 10th Street for I think he said like $18,000 in the 60s that he just paid cash for, like you would go buy a pair of socks at Walmart. That's how much money he had back in those days. And that he told me that I was just born a little too late. If I'd have been born 15, 20 years earlier, he says I'd have had a great time and made all that money too.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I mean, the money to be made back then, as long as you didn't fall into too many of the traps that befall dealers and anybody that has something to do with the business, there's all these traps. These guys know all these traps, and they can tell you about it. I'm sure that DH can tell you about what's that famous saying this one player told me a long time ago back in the 70s. I says, "Hey, Mr. C, looks like you're about to get even." He goes, Danny, he says, I'm not looking for the cheese. I'm just trying to get out of the trap.
True that.
And you want to follow up on that?
Yeah, well, I remember moving from downtown to the Strip was like night and day. Right? You had to pay your dues, and then you go. I went from the Sundance downtown, averaging $39 a day, which was not bad for me because I was starving when I got the job. And they had a fire. The MGM happened to turn out to be a big break for me.
I was in 4th grade that year.
Yeah.
At Red Rock.
Yeah. Thanks to my old man, who was good friends with Bernie Rothkopf, who was the
Bernie.
president of the MGM.
Yes, he was. Bernie
So when they
Rothkopf.
reopened, I get hired there. And I walk in there, and we have these shirts, and they have these lions, little lion over the pocket. I'm going, this is classy, man.
Wow, a
Dealers
lion.
with the little round lion. Do you remember that over the pocket?
Of course I do. The Lion Kings before they even made a movie out
And I
of it.
walk in there, I'm on the game the first day. We're not even open yet. Reopen after the
What,
fire.
what were you dealing?
Blackjack.
Okay.
Right. I wasn't a crap dealer.
We understand. We don't hold that against you.
Yeah.
I do a little bit.
and of course, blackjack dealers always want to be roulette dealers. So I tried to get on roulette as much as I could. At that time, I just said, nope, I'll go wherever you want me to.
Of
You know?
course, yes.
I'm standing there on this game. I'm looking at the checks, and the green checks, the quarters, are yellow. I'm going, this is a classy joint, man. Like those yellow. They got yellow chips on here. I can't believe
Green chips are yellow.
Yeah, no, I'm there for a while. Yeah, only place I ever saw where they had yellow quarters. So, but you run into people there that you remember. And we had a shift boss who, it happens, say a year later, I'm dealing. Back then, the Japanese had a lot of money. Japanese were coming in and playing, and this guy's playing the limit, which at that time for us was only $3,000 a hand. He's playing 3 hands at $3,000, winning some money, and I'm talking to him, being polite, blah, blah, blah. Shift boss gets a foot away from me between the supervisor, and he turns his back to me and says to the supervisor, so that I can hear him, who's this fucking dealer think he is? He thinks he's a goddamn host or something? Tell him to deal the fucking hands. And sweat started coming down my side of my face and dripping off my chin into the rack. I'm going,
Oh, yeah.
is this what it's going to be like working here? I'm going, I don't know about this shit. I mean, they used to sweat the money like Brad said. There was no HR then.
Oh, no.
If you didn't like it, and if you weren't going to play ball, you know, they'd call you dump truck, Santa Claus, whatever. You know,
The gift shop.
yeah, gift shop. I said, I don't know if I like it here, but I'm making $135 a day. It's okay. I can put up with it, you know. But that's the price you got to pay sometimes at some places. And a lot of places I worked were similar to that until today. It's not like that now. It's not nearly as bad as it was on the dealers, I think, as it was in the old days.
Well, you know, you're absolutely right, because it took a certain mentality to want to be a dealer. When I broke in at the Fremont, I got the treatment. As soon as they found out I was Mexican, every joke about picking grapes, grape picker, wetback. They go, hey kid, you haven't come up for air. Is your back wet yet? Hey, you want to come over and cut my grass? This guy's a Mexican. One of them greasy guys. Well, not a greasy Italian. I mean, and you're in the meanwhile, you're trying to figure out how to pay $18 or $21 and go out with both hands. And then you have these boxmen sitting there. They look like bulldogs. They look like they hate life. They're sitting there, keep looking at their watch. When am I going to get on a break? I got to watch this fucking lump over here. Kid, you should be ashamed of yourself. Your father is a jam-up crap dealer. Oh, my God. You sure
That's right.
you came out of your dad's loins? Oh, meanwhile, the guy says, press my 6, another $6. Huh?
Yeah, they take you off your game. They don't help you. Nobody's there to help you.
How about this one, Brad the Pitt? When you did, I used to hate it when someone would start betting the prop bets and I was breaking in. I would like freeze. And as soon as you think, oh God, don't hit, it hits. Now, them boxmen would just start smiling because they know, as soon as you couldn't come out with that payoff like that, they had you. They would go, what time is it, Joe? It's about 12:30. You think before the end of the shift this kid might be able to pay this proposition bet? I don't know. He looks like he's perspiring right now.
I used to just make shit up. I didn't know what it was. I was 138, send it. Whoa, 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 whoa. And then that kind of put a stop to that, That was after I started to feel a little more comfortable in the business,
Yeah.
But you had these old timers that they kind of resented us guys coming in the 70s, and we could have our hair a little bit longer, and we were wearing flares on our pants with 3-4 inch heels, and they would look and I go, "You're one of those hippie crap dealers, ain't you? I bet you're high as a kite right now." I go, "You can tell?"
Yeah, and so are you. But dealing was a craft
cowboy
back then.
boots, man?
When I was breaking in, and it was kind of coming to the end then, but my uncle, I remember when he was over at the DI, like my mom and I would come over there, and they had Power of the Pen back then, and my uncle would say, "Hey, you guys hungry?" And he would just either write on a little notepad, "Here, take this over to the coffee shop," or he would just make a phone call, "Hey, my niece and my little nephew are coming over, take care of them." And he brought me into the pit one time to watch this guy deal dice, and I was only like 4 or 5. I didn't know what was going on. But I remember him telling me, "You see this guy deal?" He said, "He's a craftsman." He says, "Everything he does is exactly the way you're supposed to do it." And that kind of stuck with me. So when I broke in, that's how I wanted to do it, And he was kind of helping me along. He would come to the dealer school and help teach the dice class and stuff like that. And that's the attitude I brought to being a dealer, is I wanted to be a good dealer. And you just don't see that anymore.
You're absolutely right. But also the guys, the boxmen, the floormen, the old timers that had been around since the 30s, the 40s, 50s, the only thing they were going to respect, and my dad taught me that, is you got to learn to deal the game. If you want them off your ass, start dealing the game right, and they'll respect you for your ability. They might not like you personally, but they'll respect your ability that you can deal, and they'll relax, and they'll be glad you're on the game. Before they couldn't stand, but now they go, "Hey, this he's coming along. Hey, you're doing a good job, kid."
Yeah, if you ever heard that, it was rare. But from time to time, I would hear, "You're a good dealer."
Yeah.
I'd go, "Thank you very much," because you hear that once every 3 or 4 years from somebody in the business. So now I see a dealer. If they win or lose, I don't care. I tell them, "You did a very good job there." And maybe they'll say, "Well, that's because I won." I went, "No, I'm not saying. I'm just saying that you deal correctly, and everybody knows what you're doing, and I appreciate it. I just want you to know it doesn't go unnoticed all the time."
It's good. And we're going to hold that thought because it's time for a commercial, and we're going to dazzle you in the next 15 minutes. Brad the Pitt and DH have some stories that will raise your hair. Oh, excuse me.
You had to go there.
I cannot help it.
Inside action at VegasNights.us. That's nights with a K. VegasNights.us. Now let's return to the Vegas Nights.
Hey, welcome back out there in Las Vegas land. Vegas, the Las Vegas entertainment capital of the world. And I got two of the jam-up guys in the casino business and all that other stuff that they do outside of work. I mean, if you're a crap dealer, and this is no offense to wheel dealers or 21 dealers, and you decide to change vocations, become a brain surgeon or a top oral surgeon, you wouldn't have no problem. And that's all I have to say about that. Meanwhile, let's let Brad the Pitt and DH take it away, baby.
Dun, 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 dun. You ever meet anybody crazy in the business?
Yeah, well, yeah, one or two.
Me too. And one was Wendy. Wendy was this girl who I didn't know at the time. I went to high school with her. I went to Valley High School, 1972. I didn't know who she was. I get the job at the MGM. It's 1981. I'm dealing. And she's a supervisor. She comes up behind me and goes, "Hey, Carson." I go, "Hi, I'm Wendy." She goes, do you smell anything in here?" I'm going, "We just reopened this place. Is it burning down again?" I said, "What is it? Is there smoke in here, Wendy?" She goes, "No, not that. Do you smell something?" I said, "I don't smell anything, Wendy." She goes, "Well, I'm not wearing underwear." I'm going, we're going to get along pretty good, I think.
Well, the first part sounded fishy to me.
But she'd come up to you and she'd have stuff you wouldn't expect in a million years. She would blindside you, and her specialty was blindsiding the pit manager, John Ross. John Ross had a big crush on Wendy, and her job, she thought, was to keep his face purple from embarrassment, from the way she talked. She talked to the players that way. The president of the hotel, it didn't matter who it was. She talked to everybody the same way. I'm standing on a dead game one day. An old lady comes up to me and she says, "Hey, Carson, what are those purple checks worth right there?" I said, "Well, I don't have any purple checks in there, but those red ones are worth $5. And she says, "No, those chips right there. Oh, the black ones, those are worth $100. No!" And she walks away frustrated. And Wendy walks up to me and goes, "Pull out your cock." What? Pull out your cock. Show her what purple looks like.
Show her what purple looks like. That old lady might have been wearing a pacemaker.
Go, "What? Wendy, I love you." And then we started talking and found out we went to high school together, same school, but I didn't know her. I knew her brother. And she walks around the pit one day. She comes by, I don't know where she got it, a shoebox lid, a piece of chewed gum on the side of it. "You know what this is?" "No, Wendy, what's that?" "That's my clit after sex." Wendy, she was like the second funniest person I ever knew besides my late great friend Sandy, who's a legend unto himself. But it's people like that, to me, that made the job special, because I try to get people to laugh too. I don't say stuff that outrageous, but trying to get somebody to smile, that's my goal. I know that's Brad's goal too.
Yeah.
Brad's a funny
You got to keep it clean now, though. You know?
He is, because they do have an HR now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're looking to justify their job. Otherwise, to me, there shouldn't even be an HR.
No, there was just the personnel department.
There has to be, though. There has to be an HR.
But specifically for what it was designed for.
Right.
Sexual harassment,
Because of certain
harassment
people,
on the job.
certain
That's all.
people will drill you if there's not an HR. And that's why it's there. And we all have to put up with it because, you know, that 10% of the bosses who are jerks have caused HR.
Well, sure. Like, you know, what it was intended for, too, is when a supervisor would put the pressure on a subordinate to have relations.
Right.
Exactly. And,
You know.
and don't think that was uncommon. It wasn't uncommon. And I
No.
worked with a guy shift boss, who I heard rumors all the time, a long time ago, had numerous sexual harassment charges swept under the rug. I went, well, that's just rumors. You know, what can you say? How do you know? You can't assume anything. Sure enough, I get divorced in 92. I started going out with a dealer, and she gets her wisdom teeth pulled. I'm over at her house. You have to call the shift boss to call in sick. She says, "Hey, Tom, I had my wisdom teeth pulled. My mouth is killing me. I'm not going to come into work today." And he says to her, "I got something for your mouth." I went, It's true.
It's true.
That guy's a piece of shit. He's a piece of... I don't have any doubts now. So some of those rumors are true, man. And there would be a lot more of that without HR.
Yeah, but then they got too. But then it goes too far. They go too far. You know, I think if they would just keep it simple, stupid for what it was designed for. But then they go into hiring now. They go into they have no. To me, if you're looking to hire a mechanic, wouldn't you be a mechanic yourself to see if this mechanic knows what the hell he's doing?
Yeah.
Brad the Pit, you have any comment on that?
Well, it's all about demographics now, it seems like. And, you know, they talk about dealers going through auditions and stuff, and that's how we used to get jobs. They put you on the game to see if you can actually function, if you can deal it or not. And, you know, where I work now, on occasion, we get some dealers that can't get around just a simple shoe blackjack layout. They can't, communicate with anybody. They don't know how to hustle. They don't know how to fill the toke box. And once they get a little comfortable in what they're doing, they're the first ones to go to the toke sheet and complain. That's why I'm Brad the Pit now. I can't deal anymore. It used to make me nuts. I would feel my only goal when I went to work when I was dealing was to fill that toke box. That was my main purpose, was to make money.
Right.
And
now you got two guys.
Now you want
two guys
people
want
to have good times.
Who do that? I don't want to name names. One's in the baccarat pit. One's on a dice table. There aren't too many.
If everybody was like these two that he's talking about, because I know them too, I'd still wear the vest. I'd still be a dealer.
And these are guys,
but they're not,
who've been in the business 30 years or more.
And there's a few others.
Yeah, there are a couple.
And there's some of the young ones that they have the idea. They got the point.
Some of them seems like they'd rather please the boss than please the guest, and they're afraid like they'll be deported or something if the boss has the power to kick them out of the country. It seems like they feel. If they don't win money, they want to win. They want to beat the player and then stand there and look around.
When I was dealing, I would get along with the other dealers that were good at making the money, and it didn't really matter if they could get around the layout that much or not, how good they could deal, but could they fill that box? Right. If you could fill that box, then all right, me and you are going to get along. We're going to hang out. And I worked with dealers that were just amazing. I watched this dice dealer. He looked like watching Billy Joel play piano. His hands were so good, but just such an asshole. And he just couldn't get a bet and didn't care, didn't seem to care. I was like, I don't want to work with this guy. He's no fun at all.
Forget it.
I'd rather work with the girl with the big boobs who can't cut into a field bet, but she's getting the bets. She's making the money. I mean, that was why we were there. And you making minimum wage plus tips. It's the tips is your bread and butter, man.
This is why I think in some ways, when they took the fun out of it by making everybody go 24 hours, it became like socialism. If these two guys here are working their butts off trying to put money in the box, and the other 20 or 30 are saying, well, I don't have to work that hard. I'm gonna collect whatever I collect if I just stand here and not talk to anybody.
If I make $100, it's only going to be worth 50 cents to me. And I've heard that from dealers.
And my attitude was, I want that 50 cents.
Yeah.
I want it. I'm gonna get it. I was working at the new Aladdin opened up in 2000, and I was down there in the break room, and they were complaining about a guy betting in high limit, a blackjack player, who been winning, about $500,000, $600,000. Well, this guy's a stiff and he's rude, and my answer was, well, maybe you're the stiff. I said, let me have him for an hour, and if I can't make any money, then you're right. This guy's a stiff. So I did. I got my chance. I went up there, and I'm dealing with this guy, and he was a little quirky. He had some weird rules, so I figured that out. And I was making him laugh, and we were having a good time and giving him what he wants. And meanwhile, there's like a half dozen suits behind me, all sweating me. But by then, I'd been in the business for a while. I didn't care. I was just going to do what I was going to do and deal the game right. And about 45 minutes goes by, and I'm dumping to this guy and nothing. I'm not getting anything from him, But I wasn't going to give up. I was going to stay on him, because if this guy's going to stiff me, I'm not going to give him the excuse to do it.
Yeah.
So finally, he throws up a yellow chip, $1,000, and he says, hey, give me some blacks for that. I said, all right. So I cut out 1,000 in black for that, and he just leaves it there where I cut it out, and he says, that's your money. What do you want to do with it? And I said, oh, man, don't do that. Look at all these suits behind me. I said, that's up to you. What do you want? He's like, don't worry about them. You do what you want. So I stacked up the whole 1,000. I put it in front of his first hand of blackjack. He says, you want to bet the whole thing? I said, yeah. If you don't win, then I don't deserve it. And he splits the hand, it doubles down, splits the next hand, doubles down. I bust, pow, 8,000 in the box, one hand.
Wow.
I checked the toke sheet the next day, it was $104. And that's when I started to burn out right then. I was like, I'm carrying these guys all the time, and I don't want to do it anymore. I never thought I would want to be in a suit when I broke in. I just wanted to be a dealer because that was, life was simple. And that Aladdin experience did it for me. And actually, I like being in the suit. I like being a supervisor. I like to try to be a little bit old school, but a little bit progressive at the same time. I know I treat people like people, and I have a good time. The casino business is great. I meet a lot of burnouts, a lot of people that are just miserable and unhappy, and I guess that's on them. To me, the casino business has been so great to me, and I just love it. I love what I do.
Me too.
I've been into the place where I work at now, coming up on 8 years. Right? And I've never worked any place more than 4 years before I would go nuts and burn out. And I've been at this place for 8 years now, and I love it. I don't wake up with the stomach ache, just dreading what I do, and I kind of did that for a while. I was dealing at the Gold Coast. I was just unhappy, and I love living in Las Vegas. I know there's nowhere else I'd rather live, and I love the casino business, man. It's been really good to me. It's been really good to me.
Fellas, it's a unique thing. You can't really describe it to people when they say, "Well, what's it like being a dealer?" And you say, "Well, I get an hour on it, and I get 20-minute break every hour, and I get to look at beautiful women. I get to laugh. I get to rub elbows with stars and rich people and common folk, and have a few laughs. And it's a unique experience. And work with guys like these guys that are old school guys that remember where they came from, and they try to treat everybody with fairness and dignity.
That's why we're in it. That's why we're in it for more than 5 years. And it's funny to watch new generations come in of management as well as dealers and see them try to reinvent the wheel. Cracks me up, makes me laugh. I mean, you get people they say, I've got a better idea. I'm going to make this a better casino, and this is how we're going to do it.
The math all works out.
Yeah. A friend of mine, Chris Nichols, who's been a casino manager at the El Cortez for 30 years. He quit there for a while, came to work with me at the MGM in the 80s. And when he quit there, they gave him a pension. I mean, he was a pit manager then. El Cortez gave him a $90,000 pension. He'd been there 10 years. He went back there because they're still giving pensions there.
Wow.
And he couldn't stand the MGM. He couldn't stand Bally's, the corporation. So he goes back there, and he tells me this story about the bicentennial.
Well, let's hold that story. We have a time for a commercial break. We're going to have DH tell that story. I know you're on the edge of your seats like the rest of us right here. With the Vegas Knights Tales with DH and Brad the Pit telling you like it was and how it is today.
Vegas. That's Knights with a K. VegasKnights.us. Now, let's return to the Vegas Knights.
Hey, welcome back, Las Vegas out there. It's me, Danny Craps, along with DH. Brad the Pit, telling you how it was, how it is, and how it will be. And let's get back to that story before we were interrupted by a commercial break with DH talking about a certain individual here.
Oh, yeah. Chris Nichols.
Yes.
Down at the El Cortez.
Yeah.
Told me a story about 1976. Now, they want to try for the bicentennial something different, so they decide to make a fabulous Wheel of Fortune. Instead of roulette, they take all the numbers off the wheel, off the layout, and they start putting American flags and animal symbols, elephants, giraffes, and stuff on the layout. And wouldn't you know it, because when you have a 25-cent roulette game, you get a lot of play and a lot of chips. Now, there's stacks 20 high, 15 high on every number, on the corners, on the splits. And wouldn't you know it, the giraffe hits. Now the dealer is picking up chips. He's going like this, and the casino manager walks by and goes, "What are you doing?" And this is what Chris told me. The dealer looked at the casino manager and said, "I'm looking for the goddamn giraffe." There was no rhyme or reason. You know, that's why you have numbers. That's why you don't reinvent things that have been working for 50 years.
That's right.
I mean, but it goes on to this day. Now the number, like we're holding 30% on this game. We've been holding 30% on this game for 50 years. Let's fuck it up.
Yes.
Let's try and hold 50%. Okay, so they changed the rules a year later. What'd you hold on the game? We held 50%. What'd you make on the game? Well, we made $100,000. What'd you make last year? We made $950,000, but we only held 30%. Does that make any sense?
Not to me, and I'm Mexican. I've been accused
any
of
centavos either.
Oh no, yeah, I've been accused of having no sense.
And Chris, another time these guys come down to El Cortez, more recently, some Harris people, and say, "Hey, would you be interested in what we're doing at Caesar's Palace? You know, we're going to make this little slush fund for employees. If they say a bad word, you know, they have to pay a fine, a $5 fine, and at the end of the year, we take all that money that we collect and we'll have a picnic or something. It'll be fun for everybody." And Chris stands up and he goes, "Fuck that. Here's $100. Put that in there." And then he said his shift boss got up and said, "I don't have as much money as him. Here's $20. Fuck that." I said, "So you didn't think that was a good idea, Chris?" I said, "That's why I quit Caesars, because of stuff like that, Chris. That's why I went somewhere else, man, and I'm happy there." Oh, my God. So that's people trying to improve things that don't need to be improved. You know, if you just, as management, treat people with respect, don't make changes every week trying to prove that you're the boss. I'm the boss, so I'm going to change this. I think people end up respecting you and liking their job more.
You know, when I was at the Horseshoe, I actually worked there 2 times. The first time I worked there for Jack Binion, and he was a real Vegas guy, a real gambler. You know, he would take any action. And he told me, he says, you know, you get a lot of bean counters that'll sit here and break these games down to numbers and percentages and stuff. He says, "I'll tell you what the best house advantage is, and that's the nature of people." He says, "You just leave them alone." He says, I could take 50,000 out of this cage right now, throw it out onto Fremont. He says, and that 50,000 will walk right back in and double up. And I said, "Yeah, well, when you do that, boss, you let me know, okay?" And you know, that's what we get now. We get these guys graduate college and well, I've done the math on my computer. I know how to work things out, but you don't get human nature on the computer. You know, you just leave people alone. You know, they're going to win some, but they're going to lose. It's the action. It's not the winning and losing. It's the being in action that these people love.
That's it.
And
You just hit it right on the head, Brad the Pit.
And I was in that spot at one time. I'm sure you were.
Yes.
There was a time when I loved to be in action.
Yes.
It's like getting high or something. I mean, it's unbelievable. I'm in action, man. This is I'm going to make a score. If I don't, I got a chance to make a score anyway. So that's why I'm not a jerk off to some of these players who are beating the hell out of us. Never am I mad at some guy who's beating us.
No, just leave them alone.
That's
you know,
right.
if they're not doing anything
I understand.
shady or anything like that, just leave them alone. They're going to give it all back.
Right.
Like my dad said.
And when they're winning, they may give some to the dealers.
My dad said, he says, until they put your name on the check, you don't need to sweat it. You go in, you give the joint 8 hours of honest work, and you try to make a buck. And of course, you always remember, too, that you didn't, my dad said when it was table for table, he goes, "Look, don't bite the hand that feeds you. Don't rape the joint. Make a living, be an earner, but don't be greedy, because then you'll fall into that trap and you'll lose a good thing." And we all know what that is. Is you stayed out there too long. You start rough hustling. Because one thing that dealers did is we partied hard. Brad the Pit, DH, we can all tell you, we partied hard.
Yeah, it was good times, man. It was good times.
Huh?
Once or twice.
How many times? I used to go on a runner for days. I'd be up. I'd take these mini whites, and I would be up for days, and I was partying.
You mean the little white pill at the cross?
That's right. It was a religious experience. I'd take 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of them, and man, boy, I would just sail for 3 or 4 days. You guys remember those days?
Absolutely.
Vaguely.
Vaguely. Hey, listen, I want to thank my special guests today, Brad the Pit, DH. They had a whole lot more stories, but unfortunately we only had an hour, and I know that you people were glued in. But you can see on the podcast on YouTube after tomorrow sometime. We'll be on YouTube, and you can watch the show over and over again with Brad the Pit and DH. All right? So I want to thank these fellas for showing up. They did a heck of a job. I hope you enjoyed the show. And any shout-outs you guys want to... Brad, you want to say hello to the little lady, what you're doing when you leave here?
I married my high school sweetheart, more or less. We've been married for 4 years, but we've been friends for a very long time. Hey, I wonder maybe I could come back sometime and tell you a little more about the Alpine Village Inn, my grandpa's restaurant.
Always plugging something.
Yeah, well, it don't exist no more, so there's nothing for me to make from that.
It was... hey, listen, I used to frequent it. The Alpine Village Inn was awesome for their chicken noodle soup.
Christy, I love you.
And I love you too, baby, whoever's out there listening.